Hello, everyone. Welcome to another screening series Q&A. My name is Camelia Shofani, and I'm the Senior Manager of Public Programs and Events here at the International Documentary Association. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Variety and KPRW, for making this possible. For more information on our screening series lineup and Q&As, please visit documentary.org/screening-series. For our blind or low vision attendees, I have dark curly hair, light skin, and brown eyes. This evening, we'll be having a conversation between moderator Alissa Wilkinson and co-director Tamana Ayazi and co-director Marcel Mettelsiefen, whose film In Her Hands premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival this year. Before we get started, I'd like to offer a brief land acknowledgement. We recognize the Gabrielino Tongva as the past, present, and future caretakers of the land, water, and cultural resources in the unceded territory of Los Angeles. So with that, I hand it over to Alissa. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here. I'm Alissa Wilkinson. I'm a senior culture reporter and critic at Vox.com. I'm a white woman with brown hair, and I'm wearing a black sweater, and I'm surrounded by books and plants right now, which is a nice place to be. I'm really excited to be talking about this film. I think before we get started, maybe we can start with Tamanna just describing where you are for our low vision attendees.
Hi, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. I'm a brown woman, Afghan from Afghanistan, and I'm surrounded by books, and I have long hair.
I'm Marcel.
Hey, everybody. My name is Marcel Mettelsiefen. I'm a white man, German origin, Latin American mother, brown hair, brown eyes, and I'm at home in Barcelona.
Wonderful. So we're all talking from different cities, which is a thing that we're luckily able to do. But I guess I want to start by asking how you ended up finding yourself in the middle of this story, which is in a very particular place, a very particular time. And of course, a lot of things happen over the course of the film that change the texture and even the landscape that you were in. So where did this story start for you, and how did it kind of develop? Maybe Tamanna, you can kick us off.
Sure. So Marcel and I started working together in 2017 on other documentary films and film projects, but we decided to work on In Her Hands late of 2019, but we started filming in 2020. So basically, we wanted to tell a story about Afghanistan, so we needed good characters. So we contacted Zarifa Ghafari, we contacted the Taliban, and also Masoom. When we met him, we knew that he is wonderful, so we continued filming with them.
Marcel, when you joined the project, what were you kind of looking for? Where were you coming from into this project?
So I knew Afghanistan from years before. I've been living there 2009, and it was 2019 when I came back after a long time not being there. And I think what was striking me most was this young generation, well-educated Afghans who started to dream, who started to build their own future. I think this was the one, beside all of the mistakes which have been happening, the most encouraging thing what happened in Afghanistan. And it was this peace deal between the Americans and the Taliban, which we realized something going to happen to the country. And there's so much at stake. So we decided to start filming, and that's how the journey started.
And Tamanna, this is your country, right? This is something you're very familiar with. How did you first learn about Zarifa, and what did you think when you started to kind of meet her and understand her story more?
Zarifa was quite famous in Afghanistan because she was one of the few female mayors in the country. And she was brave, she was courageous, and she was working in a small province called Maidan Wardak, and it was divided between Taliban and the previous government of Afghanistan. So we knew that she will be a good character. We contacted her and she was happy about it. So we continued filming with Zarifa. And we knew that she's wonderful and we will get access and we will learn a lot if we keep visit the province and follow her journey.
She is so wonderful, sort of just to like her presence on camera, right? I mean, I'm sure that's something she has had to develop as part of her work, but that makes her obviously a really good way into this story, I think, whether or not you knew her story before. That said, I know international media had reported on her story, so I know you're approaching it, thinking of it as a film and not just as, a magazine article or whatever. So, so what were you hoping to bring to the film that maybe would enrich the understanding of her story? Either of you can answer that.
I think what we try to do here is to tell a story, a story about a divided country. So and to see both parts, which could be more different, two different visions. As we said, this young generation, and Zarifa very surely is one example of strong women, one of a lot of different Afghan strong women, and we try to not do a biopic here. We wanted to do this story of the women in Afghanistan who are struggling against so many obstacles, and we had then the storyline of the ones they're struggling against, means the Taliban, but another storyline was the country itself. And I think this complicated puzzle of trying to break down a very complex political topic to this emotional storyline, that's what was our approach. And again, I think the fact that she was a politician is coincidence. It's what we really were impressed by was her being so bold and so courageous and so empowering, that we thought, okay, that's the right character. And I think one other very, very important aspect, we're talking about a country which has a lot of limitations, and not everybody gives you the access we got from her. Not only her, the political figure, or her, but as well to her personal and emotional life, something which is really, really hard to get.
Tamanna, I was thinking about the emotional texture of the movie, because I really feel like I, as a viewer, went through an emotional journey. I kind of go in feeling like, oh, this is going to be inspiring. And then obviously things happen and they're quite difficult, or we see people do things that feel almost inexplicable, which is bigger. How do you, as a filmmaker, capture that emotion? What are you looking for when you're making the film to do that?
It was really important to make people understand, because people feel like Afghanistan is far away. So it's very difficult to connect with the people. It's difficult to understand them. So the only way we could do that was through, using emotions. And this is what we did. We didn't make a political film. We did an emotional film. And we had a great access with all the characters, with Musafir, with Zarifa, with Masoom, and other characters, especially Zarifa's mom. So that way we knew that people will understand what we were going through, and it was important. Even now when I talk about it, my heart beats faster. It means that if as a filmmaker, it has an effect on me, I'm sure when people watch it, they will feel it, they will understand it.
I think one of the challenges with a film where you're trying to really help people understand the different people who are involved and what it is they want and desire and why they make the choices they make, is that you are always kind of aware that the audience is going to identify with someone and maybe feel, a different way about someone else, or even feel antagonistic towards them. So as filmmakers, do you think about that? Do you try to push that away from your mind when you're making the film? What's your approach to that? Because obviously you have characters in this film who certainly, many audience members are going to feel frustrated or angry about.
Tamanna, you want to
Yes,
start?
you can go ahead and then I can continue.
I think obviously it's challenging. But look, we're doing a film. What we want to do is tell the story of this division, which is a division which is universal. It's not Afghanistan only. A polarized and divided country is something you find all over the world right now, and that's unfortunately happening because people are not talking to each other. And I think since the Taliban have been already legitimized when we started the film by the peace talks between the American government and the Taliban, without including the Afghans, we thought, okay, let's see who are those people who gonna most probably rule this country, because everybody's talking about them, but nobody take them with them. And what we wanted to understand is, how does the mechanism work that so many people were drawn into the arms of this evil movement? And so we did obviously not try to whitewash them whatsoever. What we tried to do is to understand what kind of tricks did they use that the people regarded them as the Robin Hoods, as the ones who defend their rights. Again, something which is happening not only in Afghanistan. Therefore, I think the biggest challenge was in the edit. We had the access, and we had to find this very thin line to understand, hey, we want to show how the mechanism works. We are in the riots and the people are chanting, long live the Taliban, because you killed a civilian. And these are the mechanism of the brainwashing, the uneducation, and I think with our strong character, which we always kind of put against this, we wanted to make sure on which side we are, but we still wanted to hear their opinion to do the 180 or 360 degrees, actually, sorry.
So yeah, for me as an Afghan, I knew what Zarifa was going through as a woman from the same generation. I was not able to tell everything myself, but I knew that through her we can put the emotions in the right way. So we covered that part. With Taliban, it was a bit tricky because I lost friends and loved ones in their explosions. So it was difficult to be there the first day. I had the courage to go. I was committed to do this, but also emotionally and mentally, I had to accept that this is the reality. Now you have to listen to them. And as a filmmaker, it was an eye-opening experience, because you're not just an Afghan, you're not just a woman, you're also a filmmaker, a storyteller, and you have to listen to all sides, no matter what they do. And also, when we were doing the edit, we tried our best to make a balanced film, because we wanted to respect the boundaries, we wanted to respect people's dignity. We had the access, but we decided not to use everything. We tried not to disrespect religion. We had a lot of agreements, disagreements, but again, it did help us to make the film we made.
Can you talk a little bit about the importance of Zarifa's driver in the film? Because his journey, I think, really feels like we're starting to understand something about how people become attracted to something that might seem inexplicable, like religious extremism. Maybe Marcel, you can start.
Yeah, I think as you said, Masoom became then suddenly this story arc, which helped us to understand the people, and through feeling betrayed, being drawn into the arms of the ones who are angry. Again, something which is a very universal thing. And I think what we wanted here to do is to have people relate to what's going on in a country where we think they are so different, and to understand, no, these problems are all over the same. Is they up there are corrupt, having the money, and we down here are so poor. You disappointed, I feel disenfranchised, and I think with Masoom's really being from somebody who was so supportive and talked like being in love with Zarifa, to the one who is the left behind, like the rest of the country, feeling betrayed by Zarifa, the international community, was an unbelievable, extraordinary way to see how the storylines develop in front of our eyes, in the edit room, where we said, okay, that's why how we used Masoom, with obviously trying to respect all his vulnerability, because he is still in the country.
That really makes me think about the interesting, I think, I would imagine there are interesting sort of challenges, but also opportunities that are present when you're a filmmaking team, where one of you is from the place, one of you is not and is coming into the place, and so you have different kinds of knowledge, different kinds of things maybe that you see or that you notice, and also different kinds of emotions about what's going on. I can just imagine that as a team, that's a very challenging but also very fruitful relationship. So maybe starting with Tamanna, can you talk a little bit about working in that situation, in that team?
The good thing was that it was not our first film or project together. We did it before, and we knew that we can work together and we get along. But the tricky part was that there was so much happening in the country.
Yeah.
Everything changed.
Yeah.
Not only in the film, but also in my life. But we were a great team together, because we could talk about things and also reflect a lot. A lot of, as I said before, agreements, disagreements, but it was helpful because as someone who was in the country, I was witnessing everything, experiencing everything, and I was also the co-director. But then we had Marcel, who could see the bigger picture. He was emotionally attached, not as much as I was. And also when I got out of Afghanistan, after Taliban took over, Marcel managed to go back. I couldn't go back because I didn't have any paperwork and stuff. So yeah, that made us a good team. And then whenever Marcel was not able to go back to Afghanistan, I was there already. So yeah.
Yeah. Marcel, did you have any additional things that you noticed or that came out as you were working on this project together?
Filmmaking is teamwork through and through. And I think what was here, I mean, this was challenging on so many levels. I had never seen anything, and to have the team in a situation where nobody really knows what's going to happen, how dangerous is it, and where you realize, okay, now it's the film is the least important part of at this moment, and we need to get them out. And so this was obviously very, very challenging, but in the same time to understand, again, Tamanna is part of the story. Zarifa's story is Tamanna's story. Tamanna's story is everybody's story in Afghanistan. And I think this was such an unbelievable way to be really involved and to try to understand, are we true and genuine in what we're saying here? And we see what's going on in Iran right now. And again, it's not only there, it's again a universal story where we said, let's try to do a film about Afghanistan, but be as general, as universal as possible. And what does it mean to forgive? And Zarifa said, you're not doing peace with your friends, you're doing peace with your enemies. How challenging is it with an evil? But what is the alternative? Is it war? So all this was so complicated to say how we end the film as well. And I think having Tamanna always as the one who says, hey, listen, it's my life, it's my country, it's my people. It's not this easy. It was a very, very challenging, but at the same time, enriching process of discussing what's the right vision to end the film in.
I want to ask you about access to Taliban leaders. That seems not only obviously very difficult perhaps to gain, but also, Tamanna, I would imagine women are not usually in that context at all. You know, that's a tricky place perhaps for you to be. Can you talk about that? Maybe Tamanna, you could start with your experience there.
Access to the Taliban, when we contacted them, it was when they had peace negotiations, the talks going on with the US and international community. So they really needed good PR for themselves. And they allowed a few journalists who were our colleagues and friends who already visited them, but they worked on a news piece and reportage, not longer, not anything like the film we made. So they thought it might be quick, maybe a few days. So they allowed us for 2 days to be with them and follow them. But they wanted something general, but we wanted to go back. So we pushed for it. We continued contacting the leadership. We sent them messages almost every week. And then we managed to get the chance to go back and visit them and film with them. It was intense, but also, as we always talk about it, we felt safer when we were in their area, the territory, because they were the ones who were doing explosions and stuff in the city. So we were in safe hands in a way. But also it was tricky to go from one territory to another territory. It was confusing. I remember there were days when I came back home, and then I didn't really tell my family everything. They didn't know what I was doing, but they knew that I was traveling to these provinces. I was like, what if the government republic knows that I visited Taliban? What if they knew that I'm also filming Zarifa? So that's why we try to tell all sides, both sides, that we are making a film about Afghanistan. I don't really care what you believe in, but we want to show the real story of the country. It was a bit complicated, but yeah, this is how it is, and we wanted to make this film, and we made it.
Obviously with documentary, especially with a documentary of this kind, the story, you go in kind of knowing what you sort of think you want to do, and then the story tells itself in front of you, right? And you're there. And it must have become obvious to you at some point that the fall of Kabul was going to become part of the story, which of course narratively works great, but also is horrifying and scary and sad and all of these things. And those two things you have to hold in tandem, I would imagine. So at what point did you kind of realize that? Were there discussions that you had about things you thought might be changing in the film? Did a lot of that just kind of happen in the edit? How did that work? Maybe Marcel, you can start us off.
I mean, it's a project which lasted 2.5 years, and obviously this 2.5 years are always the problem. When do you end? What is your end? And it was August 2021. Where we already started logging the material, and it was kind of an obvious, okay, we're gonna end this here. There's the exodus. She had to flee, but we were starting to say it can't, it just can't. She's too strong to be the victim and to be the refugee and to be out. And she started campaigning, and we filmed it, and we thought she's one. It was, but we said, okay, we're editing, and we edited, and then it was Tamanna was April, I think, or April.
End of February when she decided.
Yeah. And this was such a releasing moment to say, yes, she belongs to Afghanistan. And we knew it's going to be, there's going to be a shitstorm, sorry to tell, it's going to be a lot of polemic that she's going back, because she will be accused of whitewashing the Taliban. And I think this was the most challenging thing. If you have something so big like the Exodus, which kind of determines Act 2, how much of energy are you able to bring to really get her activated again to go back? And you just run out of energy. You're at 140 minutes. So you have to say, okay, you just can't put everything in. And we had so much strong material to keep on telling. But yeah, it's just the logic and the rhythm of a film which makes it more complicated to have so much strong material at the end happening.
Tamanna, from your perspective, what was sort of seeing that was going to be part of the film? What was that like, and sort of how do you move forward in continuing to work through that?
It's interesting because whenever we talked about it, when I was in Kabul, we thought Zarifa's wedding will be the last thing. But then everything changed. We really wanted a happy ending for the film. But then, yeah, the government collapsed, Taliban came to power, she had to flee, same thing happened to me. And then, yeah, of course, when we were out, we were frustrated, we were heartbroken, traumatized, we were grieving, but also we had hope, like we can still feel it in our hearts. We were like, if we don't change the situation, who will do that? So basically, this was also part of the story. So we cannot stop here. We cannot give up. If we do it, yeah, that cannot be the end. So there should be something lighter than that.
Yeah, I feel like what happens at the end, it feels like maybe a happy ending isn't quite the right word, but a hopeful ending, which I think is
hopeful.
Yeah, that it's more like
Call
real
for action.
life. Yes.
Don't forget.
Right. So so that's actually what I want to ask you about, kind of coming to the end of this process, watching your own film, having lived through this experience. What do you think the film is about? Like, you know, obviously we know what it's about, but what's at its core for you, having gone through this? And do you feel like, having lived these past few years, that you're taking something away from this project that you weren't expecting when you started it? Tamanna, you can start.
I feel like since we started, I feel older, maybe more experienced. I learned so much during this time, experienced so much during this time. I feel like it's a story about a beautiful country, a wonderful people who are stuck in war and conflict. But we are not stoppable, no matter what happens, which regime comes to power. We keep working to make a change. Yeah, this is the story. This is the film.
Marcel.
And it's a story about a strong woman. It's and how education is needed in order to change so much which needs to be changed. And I can't repeat, everybody focusing on education for women, but unfortunately the ones who need to be educated are the men. And I think it's a long way to go. And I think it's not, again, not only there, but obviously in Afghanistan, and through the stories we've been listening and witnessing, you do understand how important it is and how vital it is to bring change.
Mm. So, you know, obviously the film has been out and about for a few months. Has Zarifa seen it? And if so, what does she have to say about the whole thing?
Yeah, Zarifa was with us at TIFF in Toronto. She watched the film. She watched the film one more time in Berlin without me. Marcel was there before the premiere. And she was with us here in London last night. We watched it again together. Yeah, she's happy with the film. And we believe that with this film, we can make a change, put pressure on the Taliban. Work on reopening the schools. I know that we have a long way to go, but we have to push for it.
Well, thank you so much for obviously putting in the time to make a film that can really show us more of what's going on, and also be so filled with empathy, and it just I think in some ways reflect every viewer back to themselves, make us think about, what is it I want? Why, you know, what am I looking for in my life, and how do I fit into this story as well? I think that's really phenomenal. And thank you all for watching. Thanks for watching this great discussion.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.